Alright guys, let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Make sure that I got everything set up here. Chat is ready to go. There we go. Alright. Late night stream as promised. It's a little after 7, which is what I was saying I was going to stream at originally. I wasn't originally planning on streaming tonight. I was going to do more of an afternoon thing. But we switched some plans up, and we're going to try this a couple times this week as well as doing some late night stream, or I'm sorry, some afternoon streams around then. And yeah, working on this Bowser Jr. concept. If I can close out of some stuff real quick and find our Mercy sculpt. Quick little peek at the render from earlier. If you didn't get to see me working on this at all on stream and you're just kind of joining us now this time, no worries. Go check out the last stream to see the ending of me working on this, plus doing some little rendering tips just to get something quick out of ZBrush. But yes, we're working on this concept here. Little Bowser Jr. guy. Just started on him today, so we're not very far at all. Started on him during our morning stream. And since then, I've had a little bit of time to add in some parts of the body here, just really quick, roughing them in. Still need to do quite a bit here, but that's what we're going to do on this stream. So pop on in, come hang out. If you got any questions, I should probably open up my stream tab over on my other monitor just so I have that ready to go. But if you got any questions or anything like that, excuse me. Still got my sore throat, of course. Go ahead and throw those over in the chat if you're joining us on Twitch or Picarto or anywhere else other than YouTube. Welcome. Welcome, guys. And let me grab this real quick. Stream health is green. Good to go. I think everything's ready. So with that, we can go ahead and get started here. I did end up drinking some more tea to help with my throat, but still got it. Hopefully it's gone here soon. Not much else I can do other than, you know, drink some tea every once in a while and hope that I get over this little cold. The cold's pretty much gone. My sinuses are totally fine. It's just more of like residual. It almost feels like my throat is just pretty much healing at this point. A little scratchy, got some coughs and such, but that's about it. Omar says hello from Mexico. Welcome, Omar, to the stream. I don't think you've been able to join us for a while, and this actually might be your first time hanging out, so welcome. Glad you could make it. I'm going to go ahead and put some little bracers here, bracelets, whatever you want to call them. Going to initialize the cylinder. And make sure we have no subdivs. Don't need those. Can't have those actually if you want to initialize like that. That's why we got that quick error there. But let's crease some edges. You gotta do it manually here. Whew. And we can get this into position. I'm gonna try not to cough as much, but it's tough. It's tough. So I apologize. Got my Contigo back, so we're in business now for real this time. Omar, because I don't know if you're familiar with ZBrush. Are you a ZBrush boy yourself? I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm glad you could come join us. HUD boy. Was joining us earlier. He should be popping in here relatively soon. as he was excited for some night streaming. So hopefully we get to see him, and hopefully we get to see some new faces as well, since we're doing a little bit of a new time here for streaming. Whew. And can keep messing with this guy here. Do a deformation mirror, and mirror and weld that over. And I need to mess with a lot of stuff here. Most of the work's kind of gone into the face real quick, but we still need to blend some parts there. Do some more work pretty much everywhere, but we can get to a relatively good finished place, and then add in some color, and then probably go into posing from there. Will be the rough kind of setup. I don't know how far we will get tonight on this guy, but we'll see how we can do. Another reason why I haven't been streaming at night, at least since I've returned from Italy, from the trip there, is my cough tends to get worse at night as we go. So hopefully it's not too bad here for us. But let me scale this up and center it. Try to get that a little better. And again, for the people that are just popping in here, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to pop them up in the chat, and I will do my best to answer those. Omar says 3ds Max for 10 years in industry, and holla at your boy is back. Doing work on his own territory. I don't know what you mean by that, but I mean, my stream is always my own territory, I guess, really. So maybe the Nintendo character, since I love Nintendo so much. But either way, welcome back. Glad you could come join us tonight. Cute mascots, Nintendo. By the way, for those that are coming in here and seeing this concept for the first time, if you know who... I just kind of found this image online, maybe Pinterest or something. Honestly, I don't remember off the top of my head. But if you know who created this concept, please let me know so that I can give credit where it's due. I've had it sitting in a folder for a while, and I remember that I couldn't find the artist back then either. So if anybody knows, please let me know. I tried reverse Google image searching it, and nothing came up. So if you recognize the style or anything like that, do let me know so we can put it in the description or something like that. Actually, I'm not even gonna worry about that. Alright. I'm not even gonna worry about adjusting that and making that arm flat there. Just have a placeholder here for the hand, a little bit of an insert sphere that I just kind of trimmed around into the basic palm shape, which we can adjust. This finger here, I can't remember the name of the artist, but if anyone is interested, if I can find my dang B key, I'll just click up here. This insert multi-mesh fingers and toes brush, it's pretty neat. It's just a quick way to get some different 2-pad finger, 3-pad finger, toes, and that kind of thing in here just really quick. So that's where I inserted this from. If anybody's interested in that brush, I think you can get it for free on Gumroad if I'm remembering correctly. And if you're interested in that, I can find the link from that. I'm sure I have it in my email, so I can grab that for you guys if you're interested. Learning how to use Substance Painter. Any suggestions for new people to it? Probably lots of practice. I'm not a huge Substance Painter user. I'm definitely no master, and I really don't even use it that often. I don't even have it currently installed. So I'm probably not the best person to ask for that particular question. But if you got any particular or specific ZBrush questions, I'd be happy to answer those. But always tips is just practice. Get your practice on. Cut out distractions and get to work. Motivation's tough, I know, for a lot of people, but in all honesty, I think, well, I believe that motivation is internal. You know, inspiration comes externally. So you have to be very self-motivated. And the truth is, at the end of the day, you're going to do exactly what you want to do. If you're, you know, lazing around, playing video games or whatever, it's probably because that's what you want to do. My game of choice is Hearthstone most of the time, just because I can do a quick few games here and there. So when I'm feeling lazy, that's what I always flip to, which tends to be more than I would like, but you know, you gotta self-motivate yourself and then pull your inspiration from those other outside sources. But my tips for people when they always ask me about ZBrush and stuff, it's always like, there's so much, it's a steep learning curve, and you better get to work now if you wanna really be there in X amount of weeks, months, years, wherever you plan on going there. Time is the ultimate deciding factor, and it's the one that you actually have typically a lot more control over than you think. Alright, so I need to blend that into the wrist there. And let's select that subtool and hide it. So I need to merge those, blend them, and I can attempt to do that here real quick. Not do a terrible job. Just do a quick merge down. You can see here, I still have everything kind of split up into separate subtools. I've merged a lot of the stuff on the face. Could stand to merge a few more for sure. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Let me do some back face masking move here, just to get that into place. HUD Boy's here. Welcome, HUD Boy. Yo, yo, yo. What's up? Working more on our Bowser Jr. sculpt. Just kind of hanging out. Just started. You haven't missed much. While you guys, while I was away, I guess. Took care of some errands. Went to the gym. Rode a bike for a little bit. Had some fun listening to a couple podcasts, and did a little extra work on this guy. I think when we left off at the end of the last stream, I wasn't even this far in the face, and we just had the head here. So I've made a few changes there, as you guys can see, as well as adding in some blockouts for some of the other parts here, and that's what we're adjusting and messing with right now. So just kind of more block out of the body parts and making sure that proportions and all that is getting where it needs to be. And of course the cough. The cough is still here as well. The cough didn't go anywhere. It I think I was saying earlier that as it typically gets later in the night, the cough tends to get worse, unfortunately. Ooh. Whew. Astra says, why is the room full of black diamond shapes? The one you are in. Let's see here. Pop open my OBS. The black diamond shapes on the walls here, got them all over the walls. Those are to help dampen sound. So they're foam. They're not styrofoam. They might be a very thin type of styrofoam, but they're just like foam cubes. They're shaped with these ridges, and they help keep echoes from happening. As well as I have some curtains, or not curtains, but drapes behind you guys, behind the camera. You can't see them. blocking out any weird light that I would get from outside. It's currently dark outside right now, though. As well as those help to dampen sound. So all of that's to help with the sound of the room, because it's fairly empty minus my desk and computer and stuff in here, so it can get echoey if you don't have a lot of furniture. Sound is stuff that a lot of people don't think about very often, I don't think, with rooms and stuff, but it's very important, and it can help you guys hear me and understand me a lot better. Right, the acoustic pads, it's done to reduce echo, that's right. Full house. Oh, okay, Full House. You are on the Hive. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Over on Twitch. For the people checking out the chat over here, some of you are over in Twitch, some are on YouTube, so I'm not sure how many people are over on Twitch right now. I don't even have that window open, actually. I just have the YouTube stream open on the side screen there just to make sure that my stream health is good, so I at least have one running. I stream to a service called restream.io, and then from there it pushes it out to YouTube and Twitch. Astra, afar it looks like some odd art things, that's right. Let's see here. These are actually not that expensive. You can find them on Amazon pretty cheap. Hive, I don't think we've ever had you join us on the stream, and that's probably because we're streaming a little bit later than I normally do, and that's thanks to the convincing of HUDboy and a couple others, and we're just kind of experimenting this week with some time frames to stream at, so hopefully we can be a little bit more available. Just kind of depends on where people are, what time zone they're in. I stream in the morning typically. I'm on the Eastern time zone, Eastern side of the US. So in the morning, and then typically maybe in the afternoon or something like that. But we're going to try to do some later night streams in the US, just so that we can kind of hit a variety of different time zones and availabilities for people. So if you are more interested in some night streaming as opposed to maybe more of the afternoon here in the US, let me know. I'm trying to figure out what the consensus is so that we can try to get some more different time ranges available. Putting your mic inside of an acoustic box is easier. Acoustic boxes are actually shit. I know this because I have used a couple, bought a couple, and made one myself. I've never had one that I liked. Typically, the best thing that you can do if you guys are interested in audio and recording, turn the levels on your microphone down to about 5%. Get really close to your mic. Take your hand, put it up to your, if you have one of these little pads, if I can adjust that. Put it about right here, and then talk directly into your microphone. And then you'll boost the levels in post for your audio. I have to have my levels on about 100% just to make sure that you guys can hear me as I'm talking from afar, and I can't post-process boost the audio as it goes into OBS. So I want to make sure that you guys can hear me, and that's the way that I have to do that, at least for the time being. But that's if I'm recording anything, I'm gonna edit it later down the road. That's all the way down, and then get real close to your microphone. I'm in the FLA, all good. FLA maybe meaning Florida. I'm not positive there. Let's see here. All right. Keep messing with this arm a little bit, and I can get messing with just kind of softening the ridges that I've created on this hand to adjust those. Just a quick block out here. Trying to be gentle here with the smooth brush. And I'll probably end up bleeding that a little bit better. As you can see, it starts to, the surface starts to turn back in. We don't want that. I just want it to be pretty much a straight bleed. I don't want that to turn on the surface too hard there. Little things like that are things that we want to look out for as we're trying to make an extremely clean and appealing character here. Those kind of things are very important, and they start to get away from you pretty quickly if you don't take care of them early. We can adjust this, I think, just back a little bit, and then adjust our hand here. And our little nubule of a finger, we can slip back in there. I'm not even sure if I'm going to use it. I kind of just put it in there as a placeholder, and we can mess with that a little bit later too. King BB, welcome to the stream. Glad you could join us. You have issues using Transpose Master to pose smaller parts like hands and such. Any tips? Go on ZBrush Central, check out some tutorials, or go to the Z Classroom, or better yet, go to youtube.com/Follygon, and then go to playlists, and then go to How to ZBrush. This is a little bit of an introductory level course meant to get you up and running in ZBrush as quickly as possible. That's why I made it. And let's see here. Somewhere in here, in the first 4 episodes, I go over the transpose tool and a lot of the major functionality for using that. I prefer using the transpose tool over the 3D gizmo. I'm a big fan of the transpose tool. I've been using ZBrush for a while, and it's been in ZBrush for quite a while now. And in the last version, ZBrush 4R8, they added in the 3D gizmo, which is what people have been asking for a long time. But personally, I don't use it to move and adjust things. I mainly just use it so that I can access the new deformations that are available inside of ZBrush. There's some stuff like bend curve and what do you call them? Lattices that you can use to adjust your mesh and that kind of thing. So you access those just by going to your 3D gizmo, clicking on that gear icon, and then you can access these deformations through here. So bend curve is one that I like to use, and then there is the lattice is in here, I believe, somewhere, but I think it's just deformer. I believe that's what it is. We can actually click it and find out. And we have multiple subdivisions. We cannot have multiple subdivisions. Click our gear, deformer. What was that? The current unmasked portion does not fit in the currently set symmetry mode. Please turn off symmetry. Maybe this isn't the thing. Oh no, this is it. That's very strange. I wonder if that doesn't work with X symmetry, but that's how you access those things. But not a giant fan of the 3D gizmo personally. I would just kind of play around with the transpose tool. There's a lot of cool stuff in here that you can do, like clipping off your mesh really fast. A lot of neat little tricks like that you can't do as quickly with other tools. But yes, I love me some transpose tool. Love it. If you want to get serious in sculpting, it's the way to go. Do the T-pose to mesh and viola. I think we're talking about some rigging, some other stuff over here. Rig in Maya and pose it there, then export the pose mesh back to ZBrush and replace the T-pose mesh. We're going to be doing everything inside of ZBrush today, or tonight. I pretty much do all my stuff here in ZBrush. This isn't going to be a low poly game ready character. This is for sculptural and artistic purposes only here. So we are going to be manually posing everything and sculpting everything as we go here. So we're going to be having some fun working on this. And he'll be pretty close to 3D print ready by the time we're done. The only thing that'll have to be done to him is making sure that he is watertight, and that's not very difficult to do. Actually making him watertight, as well as if I wanted to do like some full color sandstone prints, like this guy, this is a full color sandstone print from Shapeways. If I wanted to do something like this, I'd just have to do some quick UVs for him and apply that color, that poly paint to him to get him in a ready state to upload to Shapeways and get printed. I'm actually, originally I wasn't a huge fan of the full color sandstone, but after buying a print and getting one made myself, I'm a little bit of a convert on that side of the fence. So I do like it. The material's a little bit weird, but I think that's more of just the process for how it needs to be made more than anything. It's not like you can do some SLA prints and print that all in color. I do have an SLA printer coming here in about February, so that'll be fun for us to play with, and maybe I can get some prints of some cool stuff to throw on my Patreon or somewhere online for you guys if you're interested in maybe getting a little Bowser Jr. or something similar like that. But we can play with combining some more of these parts, like I said, this lower jaw, that cheek there. I also want to adjust some angles up here. A little bit too sharp of a transition. And I'll probably end up remeshing this. I don't think I remeshed, no, I did remesh that one. Just a quick remesh there. So I think I'll do that down here as well. And that'll be much easier to adjust once I do that. So duplicate, Z-remesh, we'll just do 1K, and then reproject up those details. Indy Respawn. Indy is back. I think Indy was with us yesterday on the stream. Glad to have you back. I'm a character artist that hasn't done anything stylized like a Mario character before. How do I go about keeping things so damn smooth? I always struggle with that. You're talking about the cleanliness of your surface, making sure that things are clean, making sure that things are smooth. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is something that comes with time and practice in your sculpting. If I can turn some other stuff on here real quick. If you're looking at my head here, there's this is pretty clean between this transition. Obviously it's not perfect, and we can adjust this more and get it more clean, this shaped piece here. What I first suggest is if you're struggling with something, split it into parts. So as you can see here, part of the head here is just an individual subtool, and we have this nice little crease flowing through here, and our surface is nice and clean. We can swap through a couple different materials if we're struggling to be able to see. So that's one way. Split it up into parts if you're struggling, and like I said, it just kind of comes with time and practice. I would say if you're struggling with it now, you just need to practice a little bit more, as well as what I'm doing right now is another good way to get to a pretty clean shape. It's and when I know saying it comes with practice is a little bit of a cop-out, in a way, probably to you, or at least it might sound that way to some new people, but that's because it's a complicated answer, and it's not something that I can sit here and describe every little facet and feature of, you know, getting your model to be extremely clean and perfect. It's a multitude of things that you need to learn how to do. And I gave a few different things there, and that's just kind of scraping the surface of what needs to be done to get you closer to that point, to having those really clean characters. Even if you're working on some realistic stuff that's not really, you know, stylized like this, you're still going to want to be able to have really clean meshes. I think I really do believe that time and practice is the answer there. And I think that can be hard to hear for some people, but it is the truth. What I just did there with the remeshing and projecting up to the subdivision levels Now I have a little bit more fine control over these polygons, and I can kind of clean them up quite a bit more, as you can see like I'm doing here. You want to be really careful with your smooth brush. I'm using the smooth brush here. But it can very quickly start to destroy form. And that doesn't look like a lot there, that change, but that starts to add up. If I come back through here later and I start smoothing that out even more, I'm going to lose that form even more. And then all of a sudden that form is just completely gone. So at the end of the day, it just comes down to how well you can control the polys and how much you can... well, I guess that's really it. It comes down to how well you can control your polygons. How well you can sculpt. Sculpting, I think people often forget that ZBrush not only is a very difficult software to learn, but the harder part of ZBrush is the sculpting part. You can't just learn ZBrush. You gotta learn ZBrush, and then you have to, after you do that, you have to learn how to sculpt. Luckily, a lot of people that are artists already and sculpt traditionally get into ZBrush, and guess what? They're pretty damn good at it. Maybe not the software side of things, but they're pretty damn good at sculpting, and that's simply because they understand how 3D forms work very well, and they've practiced that in real life, and most of that translates into 3D here inside of ZBrush. I won't say all of it, because the tools and the way you sculpt additively and subtractively are a little bit different than in real life, obviously. But the understanding of 3D form and your ability to control that, I think, translate pretty well between those two things. Thanks for the help. Absolutely, dude. One tool that's helped me a lot since I do a lot of head scan cleanup is Smooth Valence. Smooth Valence, off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with that, but there's a couple deformation smooth options in here. If I'm cleaning up scan data, which I've done in the past for work, I'll typically just do that all manually, and typically start off with some basic cleanup. My standard brushes, you know, my first 5 or 6 here that I have down here, those are the ones that I use the most, and then a few others. But I pretty much use the same brushes for everything. Every once in a while I come into my brush palette and grab some very specific brushes for very specific tasks, but that's about it. Second time today streaming, that's correct, Pabs. Glad to have you back if you were with us earlier. I don't think you said anything. Maybe a little bit of some, what do you call that when you're just kind of creeping on the internet, not saying anything, just kind of, what do people say? I don't know. Stalking, something like that. Whew. Do you think that listening to music would help the sculpting workflow? Certain people, absolutely. Certain people, absolutely. It works for you. What about me? What about me? When I sculpt, I like to, I should say, when I work, I like to work in silence a lot of the time. I enjoy just having the ability to think and not be distracted by music. So there's, you know, certain music that's non-lyrical. Part of my Contigo is coming off. Got these little black chips. I don't know if the video is probably a little too small for you guys to see those. My Contigo has seen better days. But yeah, I don't know. I like to be able to just have time to think and focus on what I'm working on. But sometimes some music that's non-lyrical works for other people. Typically, I find that if I'm going to listen to music, I might as well listen to music that I normally do and enjoy. Stuff on stream can get copyright striked pretty easily through YouTube, which is why I don't play too much music on here. I like to sometimes, but anymore, I'm sick seeing those copyrighted icons next to videos on YouTube. YouTube is really kind of gone down the drain with marking videos as either copyright infringed for the slightest bit of music, or striking you with that beautiful yellow piss icon for demonetized, just saying, hey, your content's not suitable for our viewers. And they don't tell you why, of course. No, they would never tell you why. They just kind of give it to you and hope that you accept it. I also, going back to the music question, I also listen to a bunch of podcasts. So if I'm going to listen to anything, it's typically going to be that. Smooth Valence is in the Lightbox Smooth Brush folder. So it's a particular brush up in here, Lightbox, and in one of the Smooth Brush folders. So it's a particular brush there. It really does help with the warbles. Yes, warbly surface, talking about how to get a little bit of a cleaner surface. That's typically what I refer to it as, warbles as well. Having the correct material also helps you be able to see your surface and interpret that. If you're looking for a nice material, I always like to, do a quick little shout out. Check out my Gumroad. Got some materials over here. If you want my sculpting brushes, they're on there as well. But yeah, I got my clay material. Well, they're both my clay material. One is just the black and white version. I prefer using the black and white version. But occasionally, I'll switch to that. I was actually using this material this morning, the colored clay version of that. Let's keep adjusting here, making some changes. How does one read a ZBrush book? Probably the same way you read every other book. I got some ZBrush books down in the description of my stream there if you want to check some of those out. Some of the books that I highly recommend. I own all of them. I have one on my desk right now. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and keep making some changes. I think our legs are too long. Trying to block things out rather quickly as well as focus on proportions. And the pose here, there's a little bit of weirdness just in the 2D image here as the leg is kind of like almost, if I can throw my transpose tool up there, almost completely parallel with the ground. I was going to say perpendicular, that's not correct. So that's some nasty bend going on there. Not a fan of that. There's a bunch of stuff that's kind of happening here in 2D that just doesn't translate to 3D at all or very well. You'll find that a lot if you're just kind of working off of a random concept that is not made that is not made specifically for 3D. If you guys are familiar with the new tools in ZBrush, you'll know that Live Boolean is a new feature. We can go ahead and mess with that real quick here and give us some nostrils. We can try it out. Pabs says lurking. That's correct, Pabs. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of the thing that I do on reddit.com. Let's see here. Live Booleans, guys. Insert a sphere is typically what we work with. I think that's fine. And setting up live booleans, you do of course have to check the live boolean markup there, or you can press Control B. We're going to make a negative boolean here. It's going to disappear. And if I slide that back in, you'll start to see how that affects the mesh above that in the chain. I can also make that a start group if I want to, but for our purposes here, I think I am good without doing that. So let's not set that to subtraction quite yet. Let's get our shape all set to go here. Instead of using a sphere, let's grab a cube and we'll do some very slight, very quick Z-modeler box modeling on this guy, just for the nostril. So let's start off here by creasing our edges, just like that. And we'll crease these two edges like so. Whew. I'm going to delete this edge loop initially and start to adjust the shape here to fit our purposes. And relatively quickly and start blocking that shape out. Not too hard at all. Something like that, and then simply switching that to negative, getting that on our mesh there, inserting it in so that we can actually get the negative to take effect. That's all it takes, as well as mirroring that across to the other side. And make sure local sim is not on, or else our mirror mode will be all jacked up. I think we could stand to soften this point and adjust the shape of this a little bit more. Let's do an edge loop. Now I could do a Z modeler insert poly loop here and just insert a poly loop. You can also use your slice curve brush and manually add a little bit of an edge loop in there. Either works fine, but we can go ahead and do this time since we already got it in place. Do you work with CGI or anything 3D, or is it just for a hobby? ZBrush is my full-time job. I was working on toys, amusement park figures, and figures for museums. I've done some stuff for museums in the United States, as well as mainly amusement parks on the other side of the world, a bunch of stuff in Dubai, and then toys for Mattel, Tomy, and a few others. I've worked on IP such as, missed my finger, Shrek, Madagascar, a couple Disney projects, Hotel Transylvania, Iron Man, a couple different projects, some toys, like I said, some amusement park figures, some museum figures, life-size stuff. So a lot of work with 3D printing, so I have a lot of experience with that, and a lot of stuff for even doing stuff with animatronics and that kind of thing, as well as just sculpting in ZBrush in general. So all the work that I do now is similarly related, and I left that job at the end of last year, and this entire year we've been hanging out doing some streams. I do freelance work now, and I have a SLA printer, like I said, coming in February. Hoping to do some more cool prints and work with that. It's been a while since I've had my own printer here, so I'm excited for that. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you guys are as well. But yeah, that's the quick Spark Notes version on that. Heather says, "Hey, welcome to the stream, Heather. Glad you could come and join us. Hope you're doing well." Still got the cough. I keep on maxing out my levels whenever I do that. Don't have the tea. We're trying to stream at night today so that we can have a little bit more time to get some different people in here. We're working on BOWSER Jr. For those that are just kind of popping in here. We haven't done too much work on this guy. Maybe just a couple hours here. Maybe even less than that. It's hard for me to work when I'm talking. Started him towards the end of the stream this morning, and now we're just kind of continuing to block him in and get things squared away here. So I want to continue to adjust some shapes in this nostril and stop talking for 5 seconds so I can do that. And try not to cough and die. I just got back from a trip from Italy, and my girlfriend was sick. She got me sick, and now I'm trying to get over that. It's pretty much gone at this point, but basically just a little bit of a sore throat, some scratchiness, and it's pretty much healed. But some tea and honey tends to help in the mornings, and it gets worse at night. But it's not the end of the world. So I'm gonna just subdivide this manually, and then it's gonna let me smooth this piece out. And I can mess with it that way. And here we go. I can do some of this. Sorry for the coughing, guys. I cannot help it, literally. So here is the result of our live Boolean subtraction. You guys can see that. There's the piece. There it is with polyframe turned on. And there is the interaction that it has on the surface that it's pressed into. So as I move this, I can actually move this piece around, or these two pieces, and have those be wherever I want. And obviously as I move those up and out, they're no longer touching the mesh there, so that affects that as well. And if I move them in so much, they will create a hollow space in the middle there. I can turn on transparency, and if I were to subtract those, I would get a little bit of a hollow in there. That's not what we want, though. We're trying to use these to make some nice nostrils. Another thing that we can do is taper these out with some scaling, or taper them in, not out, I guess. And attempt to play with the shape a little bit. Get a little bit of roundness there. And after I subtract those, I don't know if you guys use ZBrush in the older versions or are familiar with the older version of Booleans in ZBrush, but you used to have to do it manually with Dynamesh. I still actually use that method quite often just for really quick subtractions or additive meshes. So stuff like this, or these two meshes down here, you saw me Dynamesh those together. That is a form of a Boolean operation. Could of course use the live Boolean up there, but what I find myself typically using that for is subtractions of hard surface pieces. If you saw the Mercy sculpt from earlier today on the stream, these wings over here are hard surface live Boolean subtractions. Made everything in ZBrush for this, and yeah, so just live Boolean for the wings, not too hard. Didn't take too long to make those wings, maybe an hour or two in total. And that was while listening to a podcast, so, you know, not the best focus in the world while listening to those, but yeah, I don't know. Somebody was asking about music earlier. Nope, but a big podcast boy. I don't know if you guys are big podcasters, but I've been listening to a really just cool new podcast called Hello from the Magic Tavern. I don't know if you guys are interested in podcasts at all, but it's just this really cool podcast. I feel like saying anything more than that, other than just like, check it out, listen to an episode and see if you like it, I feel like would spoil some pretty cool stuff. So check it out if you got some time. I'm really not liking the shape that I'm actually getting here. I just wanna. I did that for illustrative purposes, and now I feel like I kind of have to use it, but I really don't want to, because I feel like just doing a mask really quick. And this isn't even a high poly piece. Either way, the nostrils here are pretty asymmetrical. There's some garbage going on there with the perspective of the image as well. I would just call it laziness. It's not meant to be perfect, obviously. But let's go ahead and do a live Boolean operation on these little nostril pieces, and you can see how you can adjust them from there. So hide everything that you don't want to be in your Boolean operation, and then come down here into Boolean, and you have to make sure that live Boolean is turned on up there, that little toggle, and click Make Boolean. Little progress bar will run across the screen, and then once it's done, you'll have a single mesh here with the adjustments made to that. It actually kept the poly groups from those two surfaces, and it will actually keep the geometry of those two separate pieces and then kind of stitch together the different parts between those. So I can smooth those out and make some changes there if I want to. I can even remesh this, and it will give me a little bit more control over that. So that's how you would go about doing that. But for the time being, we will leave that as is and come back to it in a little bit, hopefully, and keep blocking out some more stuff. I'm going to get to his shell, hands, his eyes, and we can figure out what we want to do exactly with all of that stuff. We got a lot of work to do, as well as the hair. I only have a single piece up here for the time being. All right. So for the eye, for the little pupil guy, I think I'm probably just going to start off by doing an mRGB toy plastic, setting that for the eye, and then going into RGB here, setting this to a black color, and being able to paint directly on that. And then we'll pick up the highlight depending on where I put that. Unfortunately, the rest of my mesh is set for that color. I can quickly turn on all the paintbrush icons here though by holding shift and clicking, and that'll set the default material that I have selected for everything like that with the white color, at least initially, simply because I don't have any color currently selected or applied to the mesh. Whew. Mighty rude of her. Oops, I'm stupid, I was a little behind. That's okay, don't worry about it. So for the eyes here, they're pretty low poly, so we want those to catch the light a little bit better, be able to reflect that a little bit more cleanly. So a couple subdivisions in there can help with that. And we can just do something really simple and quick. Just a really basic little reflection there is in the way. So we could do a little sphere, I think, for the time being. And as long as that has the correct color there. Just do something like that. And then just have a little bit of a placeholder in there for now, and we can apply some colors in a little bit, but first, I want to continue blocking out some more stuff. I was talking about this tooth earlier in our last stream about how there's a little bit more cheating going on in our image than we would like, and that's you'll find that that's typically the way 2D art works. A lot of stuff can be cheated, and that's not me being mad. That's just kind of the truth of the situation. Unfortunately, most stuff that's done in 2D is not really well made to be sculpted or 3D modeled. It's not really the intention of the artist. Stuff that is done for that, you'll typically get like a turnaround sheet, and some things will make a little bit more sense. But what I'm talking about here specifically right now is this tooth. If you look at our concept, it's just a quick little V shape here for the tooth. And what doesn't get thought about is the upper lip and the lower lip. There's going to have to be some distance between those to let the tooth be able to kind of fit and show on the outside part of that lip. So they can't be directly over each other because obviously the tooth has to be able to not collide with the geometry of that lower lip, or I guess the upper lip as well. So it's popping out a little bit there. You know, we can do some cheating of our own, a couple different things. We can maybe just flatten it a little bit with our transpose tool, something like that. It's not the end of the world. We can also depress in the geometry around the tooth just by doing a little bit of a mask and then softening that and adjusting it with the move brush like so, and that can make a little bit more room for us. Just kind of adjusting that there. It's not, the character is not really going to be looked at from this upward angle, but we do want to make sure that if we're going to make them watertight, we want to fill in some of these gaps that you see coming in here. All that stuff we'll have to take care of. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. And we don't have to worry about them right this very second. But some of that will involve the move brush with the back face masking turned on, if you guys are familiar with that. And there's a few other things that we can do. But we will look at those a little bit later when when we have the time and when we're not worried about larger scale issues at this point. Worrying about something that's hidden is not really lucrative right now for our time management. So let's worry about some larger, more obvious things here. So for Bowser Jr., Baby Bowser, whoever this is, can't really see his shell in this image, so I had a couple references pulled up. I can't really, well, that's a little uneven, a little off. Oh, he's like a little clay Bowser. But here's the basic shape. This is a terrible paint job on this toy. I don't know where this is from. Jax, I guess it's a Jax toy. Jax typically does pretty high quality stuff. But I don't even, man, that paint looks terrible as well. Dang. But yeah, we get the at least basic idea here. So it's 2 on the sides, 1 up top, 1 on the bottom, and 1 in the middle. So we can get the basic idea for the shape. This is obviously a different style, and I can't find, you know, I only got 1 view to work off of here. So that makes it a little tough maybe for me to interpret some of this information, but you got to do the best that you can with some of this. All right. Let's take a look at our shell here and start getting this into a little bit of a better place. This is just a curved tube snap that I inserted. It's a pretty simple brush. From there I deleted some edge loops and then kind of adjusted some of the edge loops to create the shape that I was looking for. And now I'm just kind of subdividing it up to get it a little bit closer to that shape there, while still having a little bit of the more lankiness to this character that we have. A little bit different than the standard Bowser Jr. And then here, I honestly just tried to rotate around this ZBrush style, which I cannot do. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to do that with a 2D image, but it happens sometimes. So, looks like a hexagon, and then the rest of these are a little unclean, not really the cleanest, best shapes in the world. So let's maybe try to start with the first one, this first little shape, this first hexagon, and then we can build off of that. That is not the brush I wanted. Let's quick save here real fast. Subdivide up, and I'm using my sharp soft edge brush, which is pretty similar to a damn standard brush, if you guys have ever used that one before. I just like this brush a little bit more, and it's my own personal brush, so I like to use my own tools. So a hexagon. You can just try to do this manually. It doesn't have to be perfect, but using lazy mouse is definitely helpful. The lazy mouse is in your stroke menu under the lazy mouse little tab there. I like to keep the lazy radius set around 100, the lazy step for most brushes around 0.01. Depending on what kind of effect you're going for, you can get some cool stamping effects and stuff like that. But yeah, and then the lazy snap, which is a new feature to ZBrush 4R8. If you guys aren't familiar with this, you can essentially use it. It might have actually been very helpful here. It will snap back to the edge of where you left off. So let's say I want to continue this line and I accidentally click here. See that red line, how it snaps to that surface there? It's pretty nice. And then another thing that you can do here is, where is it? Morph targets. If you guys are familiar with morph targets, I won't really go into it. It's a little weird that this functionality is in here. I don't know why it is, but what this is going to allow you to do is keep a continual depth on your stroke without doubling it back up. And it looks like it's not working, so I don't remember how to do it, I guess, off the top of my head. I believe I've done it before, it's been a minute, but I thought you just had to store a quick morph target and then use it. You might have to do some switching or something like that. Yeah, I can't. I don't believe you need to create a difference mesh or anything like that. It's not a big deal. If you guys are interested in creating a lot of strokes on your mesh with lazy mouse and then not having your strokes double up like what just happened there, if you want to have continual depth, you can look up a quick tutorial for that. I do have it, I think, somewhere in my How to ZBrush series, but off the top of my head I can't remember, and it's not something that I use personally very often. You have to use the morph brush, says Indy. I don't believe that's true, because if you use the morph brush, then you can't use any of your other brushes to have that happen. So with the morph brush, the brush one requires a valid morph target. What the morph brush does is, let's say I store a morph target and I sculpt on here, make some sculptural changes, and then I say switch. It'll go back to my stored morph target, and I can switch and go back to that. What the morph brush does, it's really neat, it'll erase anything back to my original morph target. So, or I can switch and use my morph brush to get some of that detail back. So I can just undo all of that because I don't want any of that. But yeah, that's the basic use of the morph brush. Again, off the top of my head, there's some little setting I know I have to turn on somewhere, and I can look it up later if people are really interested. But it's really not. It's not a big deal. I don't need it for this purpose right now. Could be nice though. I'm sorry, I thought it was what you were talking about. No worries, it's not a big deal. Any tips for people wanting to make a career out of a profession similar to yours? And was it just a minute or was it a hot minute? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what a hot minute is entirely. So I'm just gonna say it was just a minute. Painting collectibles and miniatures is no joke. You need precision tools, absolutely. Tips on making a career out of something like this. Listen to Art Anonymous. It's a podcast that's coming out on Thursday, the first episode. Myself and my friend, who is a traditional sculptor, he's a ceramicist, me and him talk about a lot of these different types of things, questions like that. So if you guys have any questions that you'd like to hear us talk at length, like how to make a career out of being a sculptor, that's a great topic for us to talk about, and it's one that we have discussed before. So yeah, starting on this Thursday, every Thursday, that is going to come out. So please be sure to check that out when it does come out, and let me know what you think. The best way to get your questions or particular topics on the show, if you're interested in that, is going to be putting them in the chat right now so that I can remember and copy and paste them in a document somewhere, or comment on the videos once those are posted. That's going to be the best way, because that's where we're going to be checking for new topics and content. So I hope you guys check that out when it comes out. We're pretty excited about it. We've had fun just kind of chatting and recording some stuff. It's a pretty good time, and it's interesting to have a digital sculptor and a traditional sculptor. I've known my friend Daryl, who's the traditional sculptor of the group. I've known him for a while, and it's not something that we really get to talk about all too often. We just, work isn't something that you talk about, I guess, very often outside of the office. So it's nice to kind of just hear those different perspectives and see what he thinks about digital art and maybe what I think about traditional art. Some cool stuff like that. So there's just a rough little pattern there. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially since I'm probably going to be rendering this from the front view. I don't want to put a ton of effort going into this, but if we want to get this as a 3D print, maybe I'll come back to it and do another pass on this guy. But let's put some spikes on this real quick, continuing to make sure we have all the parts in here, as well as the hair. I need to do that, don't let me forget. So let's see here. In terms of tips for making it a career, I guess now, a profession similar to yours, I don't know, you have to be a pretty motivated, self-motivated individual, absolutely. I think that much is probably obvious to a lot of you, as well as time. Time is a huge factor. Time is one of those art fundamentals that a lot of people either forget about or take for granted. Granted, sorry. I pulled a Rick and Morty there. You want to take it for granted. And what I mean by that is art, sculpting, all of this takes it takes a fucking long time, guys. It really does. And honestly, it's annoying, and it sucks when you see people kind of sugarcoat it. And I could give any number of tips and advice and everything else, but the truth is that if you don't put in the time, you're never gonna get there, and it's a lot of time. And time's a fundamental of art. It really is. One of my least favorite questions to see from people is, how long did it take you to make something? Not that that's a bad question. I think that's a fair question, but I think it's one of those wrong questions to ask, because I think a lot of the time what people are fishing for is, well, how long does it take you to do that? And I want to compare myself to that. Or I want to figure out what I think more about you based on how you answer this question. But it's not just about how long it took to create, you know, this sculpt here or something like that. It's also the fact that, you know, I've been digital sculpting inside of ZBrush for a number of years. So not only did this take me, you know, oh, it just took me less than 2 hours to get to this point. Wow, that's maybe that's pretty quick. But also, you know, I've been practicing and sculpting for a long time. So don't compare yourself to, you know, the people that are on the front page of ArtStation and that kind of thing. Once you can objectively look at your work, I think it's fair to kind of put yourself up to that standard, and once you feel like you can do that, you can put yourself up to that standard, you should do that, because, you know, you should be comparing yourself against your peers. But at the same time, understand that you're not going to use ZBrush for a year and be as good as I am. You're not going to use ZBrush for 6 months and be as good as I am. And ZBrush, I say this a lot, ZBrush is not just the software that you have to learn. It's also sculpting that you have to learn. And that kind of sucks, right? It's two really hard things that you have to learn. You have to fight the user interface of ZBrush, which we all know isn't the greatest, right? And you also have to learn how to sculpt, and sculpting digitally, sculpting traditionally is hard enough. ZBrush makes it maybe a little bit easier, but it's convoluted and everything else. So hopefully you can get over those two huge humps of the software being hard to learn and sculpting is a whole nother ball game and all these different things, and get to a point where you can you know, make a career out of something like this if that's your passion, if that's something you want to do. But you have to understand that it really is tough. It really takes a long time, and it's not something that's just going to happen overnight. You gotta be passionate about it. You gotta put in the time. And that's my little rant on that. Is this new podcast on iTunes, or where do we listen? It's going to be posted up on my YouTube channel here on Thursday. It's a little bit more of an experiment. We just call it a podcast because it's an audio-only experience. So for us, we're not looking to purchase some expensive podcast hosting quite yet, but if people are really interested in it, if people like it, and we continue to do it, I'm sure eventually we will make it a little bit more professional and probably get some hosting for it so that we can have that on a little bit of what would you call it, an RSS feed, as well as get that uploaded to iTunes and all that so people can subscribe and blah 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 blah, all the stuff that more professional people do. But yeah, it's just an experiment for the time being. It'll be up on YouTube. If you follow me on any social media channel, you'll definitely hear about it. And every Thursday, at least for the next month or two, we're gonna be working on that and uploading them and talking about all sorts of topics and interesting little tidbits. So if you guys got questions, topics, ideas, anything you want to hear about, please throw them up in the chat. Puke them up right up there for me, and I'll do my best to take a quick note and have a great topic for Daryl and I to discuss. How to get in anatomy when you are indifferent to it. I don't understand that question. How to get into anatomy when you are indifferent to it. I think maybe you need to want to do it. Do what you want. At the end of the day, it's just like, how do you make a career out of something? Yeah, of course it takes a lot of time, but you got to be passionate about it. It's got to be something you want to do. If you don't want to get into anatomy, I guess maybe don't get into anatomy, right? That's the truth. I stopped doing ZBrush and art for 4 years so I can focus on my family. That's awesome. Great for you. now I have to relearn stuff. It's definitely a skill that can be that can deprecate in time, or I'm sorry, depreciate. Same thing, same meaning. Starting to get freelance work, and I have a job doing 3D work, so it all pays off in the end. Just got to keep with it. That's absolutely true. The only people that fail are the ones that give up. Meaning, if a realistic style does not appeal to you, how to get motivated to do it. I'm very bad at questions about motivation. Please do not ask me questions about motivation. I'm very sorry. I do not know how to motivate people. I think motivation is something that has to be internal. I think you can be inspired by some stuff, but the truth is, if you're not motivated to do something, it's probably because you don't want to do it, and you're not going to do what you don't want to do. So find a way to make you want to do it, and then you will do it, I guess. If it's something you need to do to possibly further your skills and get a job in whatever industry you want to do, then that sounds like a pretty good reason to want to do that thing. So that would motivate me personally to want to do that. But don't do what you don't want to do, I guess. Like I said, I'm really bad at questions about motivation. I think they're inherently kind of silly questions. Sorry if I sound weird. No, you are good. I totally understand your question. How to find a teacher. The internet is your friend. If you don't want to learn anatomy, you can always do environment, art, rigging, animation, or sculpting. Yeah, and anatomy, characters aren't. If you want to do characters, I feel like you would want to learn some anatomy at least. He's got these little rings around him. I guess I could have done that before I duplicated all of these so many times. Let's poop. Let's poop. Let's do move infinite radius. I am using the ZModeler brush to insert some edge loops. This is going to be a pain. For some reason, my move infinite radius brush is moving unevenly. You can see that there. I don't know why that's happening. That's pretty frustrating. And if I adjust that, it's going to be stupid. Blah. I don't know why that's happening. I'm going to try to adjust this manually and try to fix it for us. I could also add a quick little torus in here. Try something like that. I would. That's just garbage. Garbage, 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 garbage. I don't know why it's being stupid. ZModeler typically plays nice for this kind of thing. I don't know why it's acting up. I could try to manually slice this. Like that. And then from there, do an extrude poly loop. Something like that. Crease, edge loop in here. And then bevel edge loop for these edges. And just like that, we have the shape that we're looking for. Maybe not quite exactly the same, but I think it gets the point across, especially for something that's probably not going to be rendered or in the final render. Let's see here if I can inflate these edges. I think we'll be in a good place to reduplicate this out over our mesh. And you can do that universally in your deformation palette. Little quick save for us. I'll just add a little bit more inflation in there. And I think that'll do the trick. Whoops, wrong brush. Use my selection lasso. Make sure I actually select everything. Delete hidden, and now I'm just going to redistribute those back around. It's going to be a little bit easier if I duplicate them this time though. And I might have to do a little tweaking, maybe not. This might actually work just fine. All right. So some quick additional placements in here. Delete the edge loop and redo again. I think that was a little bit of an older message for our edge loop that was kind of playing mean with us. It wasn't doing exactly what we wanted. If you guys are familiar with ZModeler brush at all, there's a ton of awesome functionality in here. The move infinite radius, essentially what that does is it lets you move an edge loop, and if you use that and hold the shift key while using it, you can slide an edge loop along a surface, or let's say a cylinder perfectly, just by holding that shift key down. But what was happening there was my geometry, and you can see this maybe a little bit better now. It's not perfectly straight up and down, so see how my transpose tool is perfectly straight up and down, but that edge is not following that. So a little bit of a problem there, which was causing our move infinite radius to act up. It's not a big deal, it's not the end of the world. Just a quick little manual slice to get our edge loop in there. There's always more than one way to do anything inside of ZBrush. There's typically a million ways to do anything in ZBrush. And that was one additional method that we found there. So if you guys are ever in a pinch like that, the slice curve brush is a great way to add in an impromptu edge loop when need be. Typically that's not what it's used for though, but that's not what ZBrush is about. ZBrush is not about learning one way to do a thing. ZBrush is about learning a tool set, about learning how to use the tools available to you, and then from there just problem solving and figuring out how you can use those tools to solve the problems that are presented to you. And you'll typically find some really unique and interesting ways of solving those problems, much like I just did there with my my slice curve brush. So that's why I made that How to ZBrush series. The purpose of it was to get you up and running with the most basic tool set in ZBrush, all the stuff that I use most frequently, all the stuff that I think is really important for you to learn right out of the gate, instead of just kind of opening ZBrush and then what would be the word, floundering about like a fish out of water until you figure out what the edit button is and how ZBrush isn't your typical 3D program. I try to stay away from a few different forums that typically get a lot of newer people on them, simply because I get tired of seeing the same questions over and over and over again. After a while, people asking the question of what the hell is going on in ZBrush, why is this happening, it gets a little old. It gets a little old after a while. Alright. So we have our shell blocked out there. Some of the other stuff that I want to look at, merging some different parts. The hair. Whew. There's some pretty interesting creases going on in the hair right there. Thinking about how I want to do that. Of course, there's a million different ways. Real quick, just a ZRemesh at the lowest value there, 0.1. Quick little retopo. And let's just start by duplicating a piece and doing a little rotate, scale in. Just using a large move brush right now and attempting to get that into a place that I like. And I'm not going to do this right now for the middle piece, I don't think, but if you have a little too much topology, you can quickly come through there with your Z modeler brush and delete some extra edge loops. Careful though, up here, as you can see, the geometry is a little more crazy, and that's just because Z modeler has some trouble figuring out what's going on up there. And the more I go in here, the more it's going to start deleting some edge loops that I don't want it to. So we'll just leave that alone for the time being. It's not a big deal. Mirror and weld. It's going to merge that geometry together underneath, but it's hidden, so it's really not a big deal. If you don't want that to happen, your Subtool Master mirror option is always available to you. And that is located, for those that don't know what that is, in your Z plugins Subtool Master right here. So Subtool Master. So some quick little hair strands up top. And now that, because these aren't merged, it makes it a little bit easier for us to continue playing around and making a couple changes. I like to keep my geometry typically split up into as many parts as I can, especially in those early stages, and continue to play with that. And I just heard my roommate come home, good old background guy, Austin. If you guys, I think Hudman, ex-Hudman, the only one who was around for the streams that far back when Austin would join me. It's been a while since we've had our guest on. It would be fun, I think, to bring him on a night stream sometime. Whew. But he is a busy boy as well. So maybe I'll talk to him about it and we can see what we can do. He's a funny dude. Alright, so get some of that into position. Hudboy says, oh yeah. It's been a while. Back in the day, Austin and I used to, he essentially lived in an apartment building one over from me, and we would, I would stream and do some ZBrush stuff on Twitch, and he would hang out and work on programming his whatever game or project he was working on at the time. He is still working on a game called Gravity Pong, if you guys remember that. It is now called Match Point. And if you guys are interested in checking that out, I think if you just Google Austin H1 match point, he should pop up. Can't remember the name of the website where it's located, but try that and see if you can find it. It is available for free, or at least the current demo is, but he plans on selling it and putting it on Steam once it is finished. It's a pretty fun competitive multiplayer game, up to 4 players. It's great for couch co-op, or not couch, well, yeah, couch co-op, because you can do 2v2 and stuff like that. But fun for some like little tournaments and stuff like that. The best way to explain it is essentially it's Pong with gravity, hence the previous name of Gravity Pong. Not coughing as much anymore, now just kind of yawning a lot. For our little bracelet here, what I would like to do is subdivide it once and delete my lower subdivision levels. Now what you can see are the higher res edge loops that are created from me subdividing that once. I get one additional poly loop in here, as well as a few more edges, and hopefully, if this works out the way I want it to, we can just very quickly come in here and not do that. That's not going to do exactly what we want. So I'm trying to think of the most simple and quick way to replicate this little detailed pattern that's happening around these cuffs or bracelets, whatever you want to call them. And there's a few different ways we can go about doing that. I duplicated this piece. Here's one way. Actually, here's a way. Here is a really neat way that I just thought of. So I'm just going to place one of these and try to size it up, get it into a nice position, and make sure that I'm happy with its placement. We'll scale it to be a little bit larger. And then from there, what we're going to do is come to our cylinder over here. Take your transpose tool, click on this vertice, and essentially what that's going to allow us to do, as long as rotate is selected, it's going to allow us to rotate around that vertice. And for us in this instance, that means that I can rotate this sphere around that vertice perfectly. Unfortunately, this is not round. It's a little bit ovoid, which isn't a big deal, I guess. It's not the end of the world. So I can just duplicate this, rotate it around, and get some of these into position. Get one across from it. And if this was perfectly cylindrical, perfectly round, it would be a lot easier. It's not a big deal. I think I can just kind of manually place these, and we can look at how to go about doing that. And a little bit more. Spacing doesn't have to be perfect on them. It's not the end of the world. This will make it a little bit easier to see where that needs to be lined up. So bisecting that line there. And I'll duplicate a few more of these and place them on here. And for some of these, I'm going to have to line that up and place it manually. Not a big deal though, like I said. Whew. All right. take a look at this real quick, make sure I'm fine with that. I mean, you can look at these and see how how askew they are. They're not even placed very well in the 2D image, but that's not a huge deal. That's why I'm a little quick to dismiss some things like the tooth not working in 3D and some of these other things. It's really just kind of a matter of me being able to interpret some of this information and do the best that I can with what I have. It's not the end of the world if as long as it looks good and as long as it is clean, I'm going to be happy with our result. Alright. If you guys are unfamiliar with the technique that I just used there, if you're using the transpose tool, you can also do it with the 3D gizmo. Just hold the control key and move, and you can duplicate your mesh however many times you want. As long as you don't have subdivision levels, you can do that. So I didn't want to go through duplicating and revolving that perfectly around the center. I'd rather just kind of manually place them real quick, and that's not a big deal. And then for some of these that are pretty terribly off center, we can come in here and just transpose them and cough and try not to die. So sorry about the cough. All right, I think that's good enough for now. All right. Now, if you're using a mirror function and you want to mirror and weld across the x-axis, you're gonna have to mirror first in your deformation palette, because you have to mirror from the positive axis, which is the left side, to the negative axis, which is on the right. And a quick little mirror and weld there for you guys. If you don't know where that is, that's in your modify topology menu down there, mirror and weld. All right, I say we block out a couple more things here, and then I'm gonna bounce on out of here because my throat is killing me, literally. Not literally. I'll probably survive. It's not that big of a deal. I'm so sorry about the coughing. I can't help it. Whew. But thank you guys for coming in here and hanging out on the stream. If you guys do have any additional questions about my process, or about ZBrush, or about sculpting, or anything else that I might be able to answer, I'll try to do the best that I can, and please post them now, because I'll be bouncing out of here pretty soon. You push me to use ZBrush. Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. I appreciate that. If you're not a ZBrusher, I would say, what would I say? I would say don't learn ZBrush unless you really want to put in the time. Because like I said, it's a pretty steep learning curve initially, but once you get to a comfortable place, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to work with. I have a lot of fun. ZBrush is my favorite game. That's what I like to say. ZBrush is my game of choice. My game of the year every year. Maybe not every year, but I do love ZBrush. And I love seeing all the new stuff come out with each new release. I'm always excited when we do get a new update. And I'm very excited for the next big old number of ZBrush. Hopefully we don't get a 4R9. Really, it doesn't matter. It's going to come out when it comes out. But I'm very excited for that ZBrush version 5 when that does eventually come our way. Let's see here. I'm not feeling the shape of those nostrils. I'll probably just do the subtraction and be done with it, and then manually adjust them after the fact. I'm also just kind of not happy with the shape of the nose. I exaggerated that crease, but that might have been a little bit of a mistake. I might have done it a little bit too much, as well as making that just not quite the shape that it needs to be in general. It's a little bit more squashed, I think. And of course, I'll have to move my nostrils back as well. A little bit more squashed and a little bit more rounded here. Try out my trim brush to adjust that. Air of Sigma, welcome to the stream. Glad you could join us. Says, have a nice day, wish you well. Gotta go back to Substance Painter. That shit is crazy, dog. Absolutely. I'm not a huge Substance Painter user, but I have used it a couple times. Like I said, I don't even have it installed on my machine. I am more of just ZBrush boy altogether, but it is a great little piece of software in my opinion. Blender still best waifu. ZBrush is my, ZBrush best anime character of 2017 for sure. Best game, best anime character, best waifu, all the above. Couple other things I want to do before I bounce out of here. Look at his thumb. Get those lines in there maybe. I want to change this. Look at how just people were asking, someone was asking earlier, and I get questions about this all the time, like how do you make your character so clean, yada yada yada. This looks freaking terrible down here. We need to do something about that as well. But it's, like I said, like I always say, it's a lot of little things that add up. And this is one of them. If you look at this line and just how unclean that is, you really need to take the time to clean that up and straighten that guy out. Get a really nice clean curve in there. That's going to take adjusting the body and the interaction between these two subtools, as well as making some changes to some different parts of the mesh here, inflating some of this. Just very quickly. Just a little quick extra layer. I told you guys, nighttime is when the cough demons come and make me cough a lot. Ben is going to jump off of stream, grab some nice green tea, put some honey in it, and go to sleep. Maybe watch an episode of, what's it called? It's like Ancient Magus's Bride or something like that. That's the current show that I'm watching, the current anime, if you guys are familiar with that one. It's pretty neat. I think I'm on like episode 3 or 4 now. It's just it's kind of like Harry Potter meets anime meets I don't know. It's so far though, it's pretty cool from the few episodes that I've seen. Just kind of trying to get an idea of what shape I want here. I think I need to add a little bit a bit more girth to his belly in the front, but I can play with doing that later, and I'll mess with doing the the lines later as well, because my throat's dying on me. I apologize. Alright guys, Blender is not the best waifu. ZBrush is definitely the best waifu, in my opinion. Let's do a quick save our file, and bounce on out of here. Thank you guys for joining me on the stream tonight. Greatly appreciate you coming in, hanging out, asking some questions. Hopefully some of the stuff that I was able to show you was helpful for you. Hopefully some of the questions that I answered to the best of my ability was helpful for you. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow on the next stream. We'll do one tomorrow morning EST on the Eastern Time Zone of the US, and tomorrow night as well. And as well as Thursday, look out for the episode of Art Anonymous, the first episode for that. I'm really excited for that. Should have a lot of fun there, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Until next time, next stream, next podcast, whatever it is, whatever you guys are able to make or hang out on, I'll see you guys then. Thanks again for stopping in, and hope to see you in the next stream. See you guys. Have a great night or day, morning, wherever you guys are located. Later, gang.